Ya Bani Israel, udhkuru ni'mati allati an'amtu alaykum. Sons of Israel, remind yourselves of the favor I favored upon you, the preference I gave to you. It started with that way back, and then for all of these passages, the conversation with Bani Israel continued, and now at the end again, the same address was given, concluding that conversation. But one of the first things we learned about Bani Israel, when Allah Azza wa Jal had tested them with a lot of difficulty, Allah used the words, وَفِي ذَلِكُمْ مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ بَلَاءٌ وَفِي ذَلِكُمْ بَلَاءٌ مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ عَظِيمٌ. And in all of these trials, meaning the Fir'aun, persecuting you, there was bala in it for you. Bala is a great trial. Now, bala in Arabic means trial, but the word ibtila is tougher. It's a harder word. And that's the word Allah uses now to describe the tests and the trials of Ibrahim alayhi salam. So there's really a comparison here. You went through trials, yes, and they feel like they have this special place in the world because they went through all of these different trials and they have a special rank with Allah. But Allah says, I chose someone before you who had much tougher trials. So Allah says, وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ. When Ibrahim alayhi salam, when his master tested Ibrahim, بِكَلِمَاتٍ, with just words, with just a few, and kalimat also is here very important. Allah tested him not by putting him in a situation, He tested him with very difficult instructions. Kalimat, just words. And everything else Ibrahim a.s. did willingly. Compare this to Bani Israel. When they were given words, when they were told, do this, don't do this, then they constantly failed those tests. And the only test that we can speak about for Bani Israel in which they actually had a challenge were the ones that came to them from calamities other than from the instructions of Allah. For example, being out in the desert, having to wander in the desert, or having to escape from Fir'aun, things like that. But Ibrahim alayhi salam was put in a situation of trial by Allah's instructions Himself. The other very beautiful thing here is the attitude that they were given preference. And now Allah Azza wa Jal talks about, well, you think you're the only one who was given preference? Look what I said to Ibrahim after he passed his tests. Allah says, إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا. First He says, فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ. He completed all the tests. He passed all of those tests. And even a child in the audience knows what are the tests of Ibrahim alayhi salam. You can list them off the top of your head. And they're not easy things like jumping into a fire, like leaving your family in the middle of the desert, like having to slaughter your own son, like facing the likes of Namrud. These are not easy trials, like taking on an entire village, like having to even challenge his father and being expelled from the home. This is from the starting point. This is the easy stuff. Then it gets harder and harder for Ibrahim alayhi salam. So those are the trials of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And Allah says, then when we tested him with these instructions, فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ, he completed all of them. He fulfilled all of them with flying colors. And what did Allah give him in return? What is the honor Allah gave him? إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا. I certainly am making you a leader, an imam. Imam literally, someone people follow. I'm making you someone people follow. I'm making you this universal leader for humanity. Linnasi. So now they were told, I was given you preference over all nations, and Allah much before that told Ibrahim, I am making you imam over all people. And so in this, there's something very special. Ibrahim alayhi salam is the father of both the Arabs and the non-Arabs. Ibrahim alayhi salam is both the father of Ismail and of Ishaq, right? And from Ishaq's lineage you get Yaqub alayhi salam. Yaqub alayhi salam, his other name is Israel, and so on and so forth. So now if their only reason for not accepting the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the argument that he doesn't belong to a chosen race, he doesn't belong to the chosen people that Allah had given special preference to, well, you yourselves are only chosen because not because you're from Bani Israel, but because you are from actually Bani Ibrahim. That you are from the children of Ibrahim. That's where the super special preference began. And this entire legacy of you getting prophet after prophet after prophet, and this entire legacy of you getting guidance, all of that's actually still in the end from the dua and the effort of Ibrahim alayhi salam. A lot of work has been done on this issue, and inshallah I'll just touch upon it briefly. But there's been a debate, especially in interfaith kind of discussions, which of the sons was slaughtered? Was it Isaac that was attempted by Ibrahim alayhi salam, or was it Ishmael, right? Was it Ishaq or Ismail alayhi salam? And of course, our belief is that it was Ismail alayhi salam, and Christian doctrine and biblical references, they don't talk about Ishmael, they talk about Isaac. And there's some historical reasons for that too. Historical reasons being, in Jewish tradition already, Arabs were considered the lesser race. And of course, since the Arabs are appropriated with Ismail alayhi salam, part of that was to explain history in a way that doesn't give any credit to Ismail. Nothing comes his way, But interestingly, in the Bible, even you find statements like sacrifice your only son. Only son. And even in biblical tradition, Ismail is considered the older son. According to the Christian and Jewish tradition, Ismail is considered the older son. So if you say only son, well, the only time Ibrahim has an only son is with who? With Ismail. And they argue back, they say, no, actually, no, he wasn't a legitimate son. That's why he was, ma'adallah. That's their counter argument. That he wasn't really from a legitimate mother, that's why he doesn't really count as a son. What an absurd argument. And that goes back to attacking the nobility of the prophets themselves, including Ibrahim alayhi salam. Another interesting point that was brought up by Hamiduddin Farahi, an Indian scholar. On this, he did his own research, and he had quite an extensive documentation from the Hebrew Torah in his book, and also, just comparative notes and things. And he made a very interesting observation about Arab history. These pagans in Mecca, they did not have any tradition of books. These, even Allah calls them al-ummiyin, right? The unlettered. So they don't have a history of libraries and historians and books like that. These are pagan people. And yet, even as a pagan culture, what one of their constant practices from way before Islam was the slaughter of an animal in celebration of the sacrifice of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And even they used to call it the house built by Ibrahim alayhi salam. So the question arises to those who say it was Isaac, how in the world are these pagans who have no access to any biblical knowledge, how are these people celebrating this tradition for centuries, even millennia, before Islam even comes up? Before even Islam is brought to them and said, this is the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Even before that, they knew this to be a case. And they celebrated this, and the slaughter was already part of their ritual with the Kaaba. It had taken a twisted form because of shirk and corruption, but nonetheless, some of it, the origin of it was already there. Subhanallah. So that's an important aspect of this history for Muslims to understand. Again, I'm only just briefly pointing to it. And the thing I really wanted to point out in this ayah is when Allah Azza wa Jalla gave Ibrahim alayhi salam these incredibly difficult tasks. And at the end of those tasks, he said, I am giving you, what greater honor can you have? When you work really hard in school, or you work really hard at your job, and you finally get the promotion, or you even get an award, or you get called Employee of the Year, or whatever, right? You get some acknowledgement. It's a huge honor. And at that moment, when you get the honor, you know what words come to somebody's mouth when they have the diploma handed to them, or when they have the award handed to them and the handshake takes place, these inauguration type ceremonies. What are the first words as a natural response that come out of your mouth? Thank you. Thank you. You don't even think about it, you say thank you, right? Because it's just, you're appreciating this honor that you received in any aspect of life. Now think about that. I don't know if there's a bigger honor somebody can get than being called Imam over who? Everybody. Inni ja'iluka linnasi. I'm making you over all people Imam. What a huge honor. And on top of that, when the honor comes from someone important, it becomes even more important. And this honor is coming to Ibrahim alayhi salam from who? From Allah. Now, even when human beings give you an honor, the first thing that comes on your lips is what? Is shukr. And on top of that, think about this. Ibrahim alayhi salam is one of the most grateful people that ever lived. Allah describes him saying, Shakiran li an'umihi. Was grateful to the favors of Allah, the gifts of Allah. He was grateful. One of the descriptions of Ibrahim alayhi salam is, he was grateful. So you would think that at this occasion, at the occasion of receiving, you would arguably the greatest gift, getting to know that I passed all the tests. That's a gift. And on top of that, being told you're Imam over all people. Another gift on top of that. By the way, why are these two gifts? Because when you and we're being tested by Allah too. But do we know if we're passing or not? We don't know. When are we going to find out? When the story is over, then the results come out. The results don't get given to us at the end of a day. You don't get an email sent from the angels on either side. Hey, this is how you did today. No, it doesn't work like that. The report is being recorded, right? And it's being archived and we will get to see it eventually. But you don't know how you're doing right now. Ibrahim alayhi salam has gone through these tests, and even as he was going through these tests, he doesn't know where he stands with Allah, but Allah gives him the gift of letting him know, even in dunya, you did good. You did so well that I'm making you imam over people, right? Now, I said the natural expectation is to say thanks. Listen to his words. When he hears the words that he's been made imam over people, what is his immediate reaction? Qala, he said, وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي. What about my children and their children and their children and their children? Dhurriya is not just your children, it is your offspring, future generations. That's his first response. That's the first thing that came in his head. You know why? Because he understands something we don't catch right away. We don't catch it right away. When you're told that you're imam, isn't imam a kind of leadership? Perhaps even the most important leadership? When you are in Islam, when you are a leader, is that an honor more or a responsibility more of a responsibility? It's more of a responsibility. And when it's a responsibility, who are you responsible for? Whoever's under you. And if they mess up, who will be answerable first? Just like at your job. If you're the manager and your people in your team mess up, who does the boss come after? You go after them, but the boss doesn't go after them. The boss comes after who? Comes after you. Where were you? What happened to your team? How are you not managing them? What's going on? Why didn't you meet the deadline? You understand? He understands that if he's been made imam, not over a couple of people, over who? Humongous. So he needs some pretty good managers in his offspring to take care of this business. To understand, on Judgment Day, he has to be responsible over a huge responsibility. إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا. So he understands that responsibility and says, what about my kids? It is that legacy, it is that spirit that we're supposed to have with who? With our children. We make dua to Allah. Allah teaches us this dua in Surah Al-Furqan. He says, you know, رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. He asks us, he tells us to ask him, make us imam over people that have taqwa. In other words, make us imam over a family that isn't messed up, so that we stand before you with the failed results. You know, and this is obviously a long conversation because our families have many variations in them. But that concern is number one. قَالَ وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي. First and immediate response. What about my kids? What about my offspring? And it is this concern that eventually leads him to make dua, oh Allah, send prophets among them. Send a messenger among them. You know, that will recite the ayat upon them and so on and so forth. Those ayat are coming in a sec. But listen to the response of Allah. And I'll leave it at that here today, inshallah. When he says, وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي, what about my kids? I mean, you have to also think, this is a great time to ask Allah for things. And Ibrahim alayhi salam understands that. When you do something for Allah that pleases Him, that would be an awesome opportunity to ask Allah for stuff. That's the best, you know, for example, when we go to Hajj, we do something for Allah, which is one of the greatest things we can do for Allah, you know, in our limited ability. That would be an awesome time to do what? To make dua. If you ever catch a qiyamul layl, a tahajjud, what would be a great thing, a smart thing to do when you're done? Make dua. If you get a chance to do umrah, you would make a lot of dua. If we get a chance to catch, you know, Laylatul Qadr or the odd nights or even Taraweeh prayer, etc., extra ibadat to Allah, those are all opportunities for us to ask Allah for things. The more you do for Allah, the more you figure, you know what, this is a good time for me to, I've tried to make Allah happy, so this is a good time for me to ask Allah for what is it that I need. So Ibrahim alayhi salam sees the opportunity. Allah is clearly happy with him. He's made him imam over people. How does he seize the opportunity? What's his immediate dua? Take care of my kids. وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي. And their kids and their kids and their kids. But then you have to look at the shocking response from Allah within the same ayah. It's an amazing response. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, قَالَ لَا يَنَالُ عَهْدِي الظَّالِمِينَ. My guarantee, my promise, does not extend to wrongdoers. لَا يَنَالُ عَهْدِي. My promise does not extend to who? To wrongdoers. الظَّالِمِينَ. Now, Ibrahim alayhi salam didn't say, what about the wrongdoers? What did he say? What about my children? And Allah said, my guarantee, He didn't say my guarantee doesn't extend to your children. He said, my guarantee doesn't extend to wrongdoers. What is Allah telling Ibrahim alayhi salam? Listen, some of your kids will be wrongdoers. Some of them will be, that's a fact. And He didn't even say, if they are wrongdoers, then my guarantee doesn't extend. He didn't put a conditional statement. He just made a statement of fact. Wrongdoers, my guarantee is not extended. In other words, a fact of life will be for Ibrahim alayhi salam to deal with is that of his children, there will be those who go off the path. They will not be on the path. Are the Quraysh not the children of Ibrahim alayhi salam? The Quraysh are children of Ibrahim alayhi salam. The followers of Musa alayhi salam who disappointed him that we learned about are not children of Ibrahim alayhi salam? They are. Look at the most interesting case. The brothers of Yusuf alayhi salam. Not only are they children of Ibrahim alayhi salam, they are also children underneath him of Ishaq and underneath him of Yaqub. They are sons of prophets, sons of a prophet, grandsons of a prophet, great-grandsons of a prophet. Did they still screw up? They still messed up pretty bad, huh? No guarantees are being extended. لا ينال عهد الظالمين. So now I'm going to leave it at that, but I want you to appreciate, and some of you have heard me talk about this at length before in some other forum, but I'll explain inshallah ta'ala, I'll try my best to explain how Ibrahim alayhi salam then takes that information, what Allah has just told him, which seems like pretty sad information, and he deals with it and adjusts his dua. He doesn't give up. Allah has told him, it's not a blanket guarantee, so now he comes up with another way of asking Allah, then another way of asking Allah. He keeps adjusting his dua until he gets a yes from Allah. He wants to leave with a yes. He wants to leave with a yes. And by the way, what's the way of getting yes in ancient tradition? You know what they say? Silence is acceptance. So you'll find Ibrahim alayhi salam makes a dua, a counter dua, and Allah answers. Then he makes a counter dua, then Allah answers. Then he makes a counter dua, and then there's no answer. When there's no answer, what does that mean? That's the one that's accepted. And then Allah starts complimenting Ibrahim. Right after that one, Allah starts complimenting Ibrahim alayhi salam. وَمَنْ يَرْغَبُ عَنْ مِلَّةِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ. So inshallah we'll take a journey through these beautiful, beautiful ayat that are just an awesome, passage on what dua is. What dua is and what realistic expectations from Allah means. If anybody should have expectations from Allah, it should be Ibrahim alayhi salam. If someone has the right to have expectations with Allah, it's Ibrahim alayhi salam. So this passage has a lot to teach us in how to have realistic and hopeful expectations with Allah. May Allah teach us how to make dua to Him properly and sincerely, and may Allah make us of those who are committed to the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and through him the messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Hakim, wa nafa'ni wa iyyakum bil ayati wa dhikr al-Hakim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وإذ جعلنا البيت مثابة للناس وأمنا واتخذوا من مقام إبراهيم مصلى وعهدنا إلى إبراهيم وإسماعيل أن طهرا بيتي للطائفين والعاكفين والركع السجود. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ثم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. We're looking at ayah number 125 in Surah al-Baqarah. As you recall, we were talking about the conversation that Allah mentions between Himself and Ibrahim alayhi salam, and how Ibrahim alayhi salam's first concern was his future generations. Allah now reminds us of something that Allah Azza wa Jal commanded Ibrahim alayhi salam to do. And so the first thing He tells us is وَإِذْ جَعَلْنَا الْبَيْتَ مَثَابَةً لِلنَّاسِ وَأَمْنًا. That when we made the house, meaning the Kaaba, the Qibla, مَثَابَةً لِلنَّاسِ وَأَمْنًا, a place for people to come back to constantly, and a place where people will find peace, a place that is meant to be peaceful and safe. Interestingly, there's a transition. The previous ayah, the last conversation we heard was, what about my children? And all of a sudden Allah starts talking about the Qibla itself, the Kaaba itself, Allah's house. Some ulama comment, like for example al-Baqarah rahimahullah, very concerned with how the ayat flow, meaning how a subject goes from one to the other, to the other, to the other. And he ponders over this relationship. between Ibrahim alayhi salam's concern for the future and immediately Allah mentioning His house that is supposed to be a place of peace, and says that the preservation of future generations will have a lot to do with the house of Allah. It'll have a lot to do with the house of Allah. And of course it has to do with the Kaaba directly, but even by association, all of the houses of Allah that are built, including this one, are satellites of that house. They are extensions of that house of Allah, right? So what we're learning here actually is the critical nature of the role of the masjid in upbringing of our children. You know, in subtle terms, in between the lines, what's here is how important the masjid is in the raising of our children. Anyhow, وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلَّى. And so Allah Azza wa Jal, we're just pondering over Ibrahim alayhi salam and his lineage, and He knows that we're the ones listening to these ayat, so that the amr is to all of us. وَاتَّخِذُوا. And all of you take. Min maqami Ibrahim musalla, you should make sure you make a musalla, a place of prayer, out of the station of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And you know about that in the Hajj and in the Umrah, the Masnoon prayer, where we're to make prayer, right? So in that transition also there's a hint that Allah He wants us, as we think about these things, about what we should be doing. Now that you know that Ibrahim alayhi salam built that house for his future generations, well, who's included among that dua? وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي. Who should be included among that? Us. Those who took shahada. And so what should we do in honor of that legacy? وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلَّى. So here also we learn some of the deeper wisdom of Hajj. And interestingly, one of the trends in Surah al-Baqarah is Allah drops a hint. He gives a hint. He points to something in a very subtle way. And then later on it comes in full circle. Like a seed, you barely see the seed, and later on it turns into a full plant, right? So the same thing happened, for example, with Bani Israel. Right now, Allah is just talking about Ibrahim alayhi salam. Later on, He's going to talk about how the other children of Ibrahim alayhi salam have now been chosen. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. Right now, just a subtle hint about وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلًّى. And later on, in the same surah, just a few ayat later, the change of the Qibla itself. So the direction altogether will be changed. So hints are dropped first, and then the entire subject. It's almost as though we're being mentally prepared. So Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلًّى وَعَهِدْنَا إِلَىٰ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْمَاعِيلَ. This is also important. And we took a promise from, Allah took this promise from who? Ibrahim alayhi salam. And what other name did you just hear? وَإِسْمَاعِيل alayhi salam. The conversation began, it was just Ibrahim. It was only Ibrahim alayhi salam. إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا. And he had asked in response, what about my kids? What about my children? And Allah said, wrongdoers, no guarantees. But Allah also, that in between the lines, is telling us not all of His kids are wrongdoers. I mean, think about at least two. Ismail alayhi salam. And interestingly, why mention Ismail? Especially because who can't stand the lineage of Ismail? Who's been listening to these ayat all along? But Israel have. They've been listening all along. So especially now, an honor to Ismail alayhi salam, and how when Ibrahim alayhi salam made that wonderful dua, the immediate acceptance of that dua was Ismail alayhi salam. The immediate application was on Ismail alayhi salam. So now, actually one of my teachers, who was interested also in comparative religion, told me that in the Torah, in the original Torah, or what is left of the Torah, in Hebrew, the building of the Kaaba is mentioned. But instead of calling it Bakka, they changed it to Sakka. And instead of Ismail, they changed it to Ishaq. So just move along. But they couldn't change too much of the spelling, apparently. So Sakka is still there instead of Bakka or Makkah. So they made these alterations. Anyhow, so Allah Azza wa Jalla commands Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail alayhi salam, an tahira baytiya, that both of you should cleanse my house. Both father and son should cleanse my house. Again, if this is the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam, we're going to read later on in the same passage, وَمَنْ يَرْغَبُ عَنْ مِلَّةِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ إِلَّا مَنْ سَفِيهَ نَفْسَهُ. Who should turn away from the legacy of Ibrahim except someone who's fooling himself? So everything we learn about Ibrahim alayhi salam is like a legacy of his. And holding on to that legacy is the smart thing to do. When Allah commanded Ibrahim alayhi salam to take care of his house, He didn't just command him. Who did He command with him? His son. What are we supposed to be doing with our sons? Don't just volunteer at the masjid. Volunteer with your son. Don't just come to Jama'ah. Come with your son. Bring, our sons especially. It's an important thing that the fathers here realize how important it is to make service to Allah's house, participation at Allah's house, part of their son's life and part of what they see as their father's contribution to them. People who bring their children to the masjid. I still remember when my dad used to bring me to the masjid. I still remember, wallahi. And I still appreciate that as one of the most beautiful, children forget many things. One of the things, wallahi, you won't forget is when your father used to bring you to the masjid. أَن طَهِّرَ بَيْتِيَ, that you should both purify my house. لِلطَّائِفِينَ وَالْعَاكِفِينَ وَالرُّكَّعِ السُّجُودِ. For الطَّائِفِين, people who make tawaf, you know what that is. وَالْعَاكِفِين, people who make i'tikaf. I think you know the term i'tikaf, right? So at the house of Allah, there will be people coming obviously for Hajj and Umrah, they'll make tawaf. Others will come yet for i'tikaf. وَالرُّكَّعِ, rukka' is people who make what? Ruku', as-sujud. The last thing is people who make sajda. Now interestingly, وَالرُّكَّعِ السُّجُود, there's no wa in between. There's no and in between. And what's beautiful about that is, tawaf is a separate activity, i'tikaf is a separate activity, but ruku' and sujood are one activity. One activity how? The salah. So there's the wa is removed because it's one activity really, it's together. Ruku' necessitates sujood. And so here in this ayah also there's just on a side note an appreciation of beauty and sequencing in the Quran. If you think of these acts of ibadah, ta'ifin, akifin, ruka'i, sujud, 3 acts of ibadah, you can think of it as tawaf, i'tikaf and salat. If you think of those 3 things. At any given time, which of those 3 acts is happening in the most number? The most number. Who is the most number of people all over even the world, not just even limited to the Kaaba, are making sujud, actually. Sujud. Because sujud can happen in salah and even outside salah. And for every 1 ruku', there are at least 2 sujud. So sujud is happening the most. What's one less than that? Ruku'. What's one less than that? All over the world, including the haram. At least some people are making i'tikaf. And what's the least amount and most specialized, unique ibadah that's particular to the house of Allah? Tawaf. So the act of ibadah that's the most specific to the Kaaba is mentioned first. Then the act that is happening at the Kaaba but happens elsewhere too. Then the act that's happening at the Kaaba but happens much more elsewhere, ruku', and finally sujood. So there's this sequence, it's a quantitative kind of sequence even. And in specialization, it's from khas to am really. Very specific to the Kaaba to just more general and more general and more general. Anyhow, so وَالرُّكَّعِ السُّجُودِ وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ, we'll end with this ayah quickly inshallah. وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ, and then when Ibrahim alayhi salam said, well, Ibrahim alayhi salam already said, he said, قَالَ وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي. He said before, what about my children? Now Ibrahim alayhi salam is speaking again. But now when he's speaking, it's after he's been commanded. He's been commanded to purify Allah's house, and obviously it's understood he's engaged in that activity. And as he's engaged in that activity, what does he say to Allah? رَبِّ اجْعَلْ هَذَا بَلَدًا آمِنًا. My master, make this a peaceful city. Make this, meaning Mecca, a peaceful city. وَارْزُقْ أَهْلَهُ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ, and provide its children from all kinds of fruit. الثَّمَرَات. 2 things he asked for. The one thing he asked for was peace, and the other thing he asked for was fruit. You can call it prosperity. Peace and prosperity. Even if you do a PhD in political science today, you'll find for a functioning society, they need 2 things. What 2 things do they need? They need peace. Your money should be safe, your life should be safe, your home should be safe, your business should be safe, your savings should be safe. Safety is very important in a society. But if safety is all there is and there are no jobs, and there's no way to make money, then you're going to have chaos in society. That safety is no good. So you need peace and you need prosperity. Prosperity alone is not enough, and peace alone is not enough. He understands that complex concept, alayhi salam. And he's looking at this desert. At the time he's building this house, there's nothing there. There's nothing there, but he understands if this is going to be a peaceful place, and this is going to be a sustained place, then 2 things are important ingredients in the sustainability of this place: peace and prosperity. Subhanallah, When we think, when we think of the Prophets ﷺ, we don't think of them as planners, city planners, administrators. We don't think of them as, people that would think that in this far and wide and far-reaching sense. But this is the genius of Ibrahim ﷺ. First he thought about the future generations, then he even thought about how they're going to live. In the political sense, in the economic sense, in the social sense. وَارْزُقْ أَهْلَهُ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ مَنْ آمَنَ مِنْهُمْ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. Provide peace and prosperity essentially to those who believe in Allah and the last day. He put a condition, shart. مَنْ آمَنَ مِنْهُمْ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. Well, why did he put this condition? Allah told him when he said, why don't you save all my children? What did Allah say to him? My promise is not guaranteed for who? For wrongdoers. So He knows some of my kids will be wrongdoers. And He also knows the wrongdoers are the ones who are a threat to peace and a threat to prosperity. So I would rather they starve. I would rather this peace and prosperity be only for who? Of my children, those who believe in Allah and the last day. Here's something else we understand of the genius of Ibrahim alayhi salam is the concept of responsibility. He does not want to be responsible on Judgment Day for generation after generation of wrongdoers. And how do you know that generations won't survive? Well, if they don't have peace and prosperity, they won't survive. But He wants His believing children to enjoy generation after generation. So He says, only give these two things that guarantee sustainability to my believing generations. Now how does Allah respond? قَالَ وَمَنْ كَفَرَ He said, even the one who disbelieved, فَأُمَتِّعُهُ قَلِيلًا I will let him enjoy and utilize a bit too. I'll give him some also. In other words, yes, I'll provide your believing children, but I'm not completely denying your disbelieving children either. Their generations will continue too. And of course, an example of disbelieving generations continuing is who? Among the children of Ibrahim alayhi salam, it's like the Quraysh. Disbelievers continuing, mushrikun continuing, even though they were wrongdoers. So their generations continued. فَأُمَتِّعُهُ قَلِيلًا ثُمَّ أَطَرُّهُ إِلَىٰ عَذَابِ النَّارِ وَبِئْسَ الْمَصِيرِ Then I'll drag him to the fire of hell, and the punishment of the fire, and what a horrible place that is. In other words, Allah told him very explicitly, don't think that the wrongdoers are just going to disappear. They're going to stay too among your children. And their place will be hell. So it's a very kind of stern answer. And you would think, after this stern answer, Ibrahim a.s. would say, I get the message, I should stop asking now. You know, when you hear an answer like that, you figure, okay, you know what, I'm not going to ask anymore. No. Ibrahim a.s. doesn't stop there. He keeps asking. And part of the genius of Ibrahim a.s. is every time Allah says something, He modifies His prayer. So He says, okay, now Allah told me that's not going to work. So I need to work with that and adjust the dua I'm going to make and come up with something that will work. So he keeps thinking about what more can I ask Allah and how can I get my dua answered. But you will notice in every one of his du'as, one thing is clear. One of the great legacies of Ibrahim a.s. we forget. You know what's clear in all of this? The primary concern is not himself. What's the primary concern? His future generations. Constantly, every one of his du'as is something about the future. Every one of them. Peace and prosperity. Not for him. He doesn't even see a city there. He sees a desert there. Even the next dua that's coming, when he asks for a messenger, he himself is a messenger. Who's he asking a messenger for? Future generations. Future generations. And what's beautiful about this passage is, as soon as this passage is done, Allah starts talking about, even Yaqub alayhi salam as a father. Also one concerned with future generations. That's just a continuous discussion in this part of Surah al-Baqarah. It's a very, very beautiful thing. It's something that all fathers, if you're looking for a course on fatherhood in the Quran, read this passage in Baqarah. It's just a beautiful, beautiful place in the Quran. Just in the 120s in Surah al-Baqarah. Just read through it and you'll just appreciate a gem, just a treasure that's waiting for all of us. May Allah Azza wa Jal help us take guidance from this beautiful book, and may He give us the ability to implement the wisdom that was implemented by the Prophets ﷺ, and may Allah give the fathers of our community the ability to really be fathers as they should be. Barakallahu li wa lakum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وإذ يرفع إبراهيم القواعد من البيت وإسماعيل ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم.
الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. ثم أما بعد, ayah number 127 of al-Baqarah. The conversation between Allah Azza wa Jal and Ibrahim alayhi salam continues. And now Allah Azza wa Jal, just as a brief reminder, previous part of the conversation was Ibrahim alayhi salam asked for the extension of rizq. رَبِّ اجْعَلْ هَذَا بَلَدًا آمِنًا وَارْزُقْ أَهْلَهُ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ. He asked for peace and prosperity for his believing children. And Allah said, even the disbelievers, فَأُمَتِّعُهُ قَلِيلًا I will let them enjoy a bit also. And I will provide them with sustenance as well, a little bit. ثُمَّ أَضْطَرُّهُ إِلَىٰ عَذَابِ النَّارِ And then I will drag them and enforce them into the punishment of the fire. One of the things I didn't mention last time is that we look around us and we find disbelievers, and even at the time of the Messenger ﷺ, disbelievers that had a lot of wealth.
And so much so that even in some places in the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal told His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وَلَا تَعْدُ عَيْنَاكَ عَنْهُمْ. Don't turn your eyes towards them. Let your eyes turn away from the weak of the Sahaba. And especially don't be impressed with those who we've given a lot of wealth to them. So on the one hand, and even at the end of Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal talks about the ilaf of the Quraysh, the caravans of the Quraysh, and they had a lot. رِحْلَةَ الشِّتَاءِ وَالصَّيْفِ. Their caravans in the summer and the winter, they got to enjoy a lot of wealth. So how come here Allah Azza wa Jal tells about the same Quraysh, and even as an extension, all of the kuffar, وَمَنْ كَفَرَ فَأُمَتِّعُهُ قَلِيلًا. Then even the disbeliever, I'll let him enjoy, I'll let him get things in this life a little bit. What we're learning here is, in comparison to what we get in the akhirah, this is nothing. No matter how well and how much of financial means the disbeliever may enjoy, it's nothing, minuscule compared to what they're going to get. And it's really going to feel like nothing, especially when it's in comparison with the hellfire that awaits. وَإِذْ يَرْفَعُ إِبْرَاهِيمُ الْقَوَاعِدَ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ. And when Ibrahim alayhi salam was raising the foundations out of the house, meaning of the Kaaba, وَإِسْمَاعِيلُ, and alongside with him Ismail as well. Ismail is also the fa'il of the fi'l, it's also the subject of the verb, and as is Ibrahim, they're both marfu', they have a dhamma at the end, but Ismail alayhi salam is pushed at the end of the statement. The benefit of that is to let us know that the chief architect is Ibrahim alayhi salam. And Ismail alayhi salam is in the helping position. So he's put in the secondary position in the sentence way down the line. So we hear, وَإِذْ يَرْفَعُ إِبْرَاهِيمُ الْقَوَاعِدَ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ وَإِسْمَاعِيلُ. It's like Ismail alayhi salam is again the assistant to the task. But then we find رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا. What did they say? Actually, I was talking to the students earlier today in our Arabic class about this. When Allah Azza wa Jal talks about something, and a lot of times in the Quran there will be a scene, like here there's a scene. Remember when Ibrahim alayhi salam was raising the foundations of the house along with Ismail? But then there's a verb in the middle missing. And they said, now what did they say? رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا. As they were saying, as they were building the house, they were saying, رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا. But the verb they were saying is not mentioned. And this is a means of imagery in the Quran, that you're supposed to just imagine the scene, and you're supposed to just imagine them saying this without having to spell out that they were saying it. It's a means of immersing ourselves into that image. So immediately the transition goes into what they were saying continually. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا. Our Master. Rabbana, by the way, is a means of dua. See the fatha on the ba, Rabba, Rabbana. When you find that in the Quran most of the time, at least especially in the beginnings of statements, it's an usloob, it's a form of dua. Unlike what you find in Surah Al-Kahf. You find Rabbuna Rabbu Samawati wal Ard in Surah Al-Kahf. That's not a dua, that's a statement of fact. So the munada, when you call someone, you'll find that fatha. So in most of the du'as you've memorized, like Rabbana atina fid dunya, right? Rabbana waj'alna muslimin lak. Those kinds of dua, that fatha actually indicates that this is a munada, you're calling on Allah. It's a means of calling on Allah. But the reason I'm calling your attention to it is because the previous ayat, if you look, Ibrahim alayhi salam, he said, Rabbi ij'al hada. My Master, my Lord, Rabbi. It was about himself, but now the dua is Rabbana, our Lord. He includes Ismail alayhi salam in his dua. And this is also really important because in the previous ayah Allah told him not all of his children are going to be believers. And not all Allah's guarantee is not extended to everyone. So in his genius, Ibrahim alayhi salam decides to do two things. One, I'm going to ask Allah as I'm doing one of the greatest acts that can be done, building Allah's house. And I'm building it with my son, so he's doing a good deed too. And since I know this is a deed that's been accepted by Allah, that he knows. Obviously this is a command from Allah, so it's a deed that has been approved by Allah himself subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's no way this dua is getting turned down. But as part of my as his genius, what does he do? He includes his son in this dua. So if I can't have guarantees for all of my generations, at least I know for sure the chances of this one getting accepted are pretty high. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا. Our Lord, accept from both of us. Except from us, not from me, from us. What's awesome also is, it's been commented that Ibrahim alayhi salam has already been accepted in the beginning of this passage. Allah already told him, إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا. I'm making you imam over all people. If that's not acceptance, I don't know what is. So his acceptance is already there. But in a very sharp fashion, what is he including now into that acceptance? his son Ismail alayhi salam. At least guarantee me my immediate future generation. So he says, رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا. Other very important benefits from this ayah that shouldn't be ignored, and we should be very conscious of, is that you and I get a chance to do good deeds sometimes. For example, we get to attend the salat in the masjid, or we get to maybe go for the opportunity, for those of us who are capable in terms of health and finance, to go to Hajj, or to take advantage of the fasting and good deeds and recitation of Quran in Ramadan, things like that. We get opportunities to do good deeds. And when we do them, we feel like, yeah, I did good this year. Oh, this was pretty good. I accomplished some major good deeds. Now, as opposed to that, if we think about Ibrahim alayhi salam, this is no small good deed. He's building Allah's house, and not just any house. This is the Kaaba. If we talk about, masjid fundraisers are done and stuff, one of the encouragements given to you is every penny we put into this masjid, for every brick, every time somebody comes in here and makes sajda, I have a share in that. I have a share in the reward. Can you imagine the rewards of someone who's putting the foundations of the Kaaba together? Like how big of a deal that is, that he's building it with his hands, with his son alayhi salam. So it's one of the most noble, if you're talking about opportunity to do a good deed, this would be one of the top opportunities in history to do a good deed, right? And yet at the same time, even though he's been accepted by Allah, even though he's a prophet of Allah, a messenger of Allah, he's from the ulul azam min ar-rusul. He's already been told you already passed all your tests. Even after all of that, he's not so sure that what he's doing is good enough or is acceptable to Allah. So at the end of even that amazing task, what does he say? رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا. I'm not sure if this was good enough. Oh Allah, whatever shortcomings there may have been, please accept it from us anyway. I mention this because when we do acts of ibadah, we shouldn't assume, at least this one's done, not have to worry about other things. No. How do we know this one got accepted? We're supposed to be in a state of humility in regards to our good deeds. In regards to our good deeds. And it's a very important thing to keep fresh in the mind of a believer. Because when we're not conscious of constantly seeking Allah's permission and Allah's acceptance of our good deeds, and we start assuming that our good deeds have been accepted, then what seeps into our character is self-righteousness. You start assuming that you are a good person, that I am a good person. And that's a very dangerous attitude to have. To feel that you are safe now from hypocrisy, or you're safe from the weakness of iman, or all your deeds are good, you're done. No. We have to walk that fine. We have to be hopeful that Allah accepts our deeds, and we have to be afraid that they won't get accepted. We have to have that line in between. That's what this dua teaches us. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. Certainly you're truly the one that is all hearing. Meaning you're hearing this dua. And you know the intention behind this dua too. You know what is behind this dua. So ilm is beyond sama'a. Sama'a is what you say, somebody hears. But ilm is what somebody didn't even say, what they had in their heart, he knows that too. So when dua is made, there's one thing that we know, that Allah hears the dua. But here's also an acknowledgement that Allah knows what is the intent, the sincerity, the desperation, right? The demand from Allah, the longing for Allah to accept that dua, that is also there. So He accepts that both of them are being gauged by Allah. رَبَّنَا وَاجْعَلْنَا مُسْلِمَيْنِ لَكَ. Our Master, just make us Muslim just for you. وَاجْعَلْنَا مُسْلِمَيْنِ. Both of us who? Ibrahim and Ismail alayhim as-salam. Make both of us Muslim just for you. Laka, for you. Now, Muslim for you, what does that mean? Make us of those who are always in submission. Always who give up their will. There's always two options in front of you. What do I want to do? What does Allah want me to do? Make us of those who always think of what does Allah want us to do, and they give up their will and they take Allah's will. This is what Islam literally means. To give up, to submit. To submit what? To submit what you want and accept what Allah wants. That's Islam. That's what he's talking about. Submitting before Allah's will. So he says, make us of those who always submit before you. This ism fa'il is used, So instead of saying nuslim lak, Rabbana waj'al nuslimu lak. Nuslim would have been the mudari' form. That wouldn't have permanence in it. Muslimaini, just keep us Muslim. Just keep us that way. Keep us always in that state of submission. وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِنَا أُمَّةً مُسْلِمَةً لَكَ. You remember he asked about his future generations? What did Allah say? He said, only give peace and prosperity to my believing children. Allah said, no, even the disbeliever, I'll give him a little also. He's coming back to his future generations. The first part of the dua was about his immediate son, but now he comes back to the future generation of his and his son. He says, okay, fine, I can't ask for my entire future generations because I've already asked that one and I have the answer for that one already. So he says, وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِنَا. What does min mean? From, out of our future generations, ummatan muslimatan, like at least one group, at least one ummah, ummatan muslimatan, one ummah that remains in submission to you. Okay, we know we can't have all of them, but at least guarantee me one. One group should remain straight. And this is a very powerful dua because he knows there have been people before who had a following of believers, but after a couple of generations, not even one group remained that was on the truth. The entire nation was gone. So he's begging Allah, at least keep one ummah intact. One ummah, ummatan muslimatan lak. Wa arina manasikana. And on top of that, show us our rituals. Now the beauty of this is, show us our rituals is towards the end of this supplication. He's building what house? The Kaaba. So he's begging Allah to show him how to worship Allah at the Kaaba. Arina manasikana. But when he says arina this time, the na, it is not just Ibrahim and Ismail who has just been included now as the dua progresses. The future generations too. Show all of us our rituals. In other words, show us how to do Hajj. Show us how to make Salah. Salah is part of the ritual towards the Kaaba. Hajj is a ritual towards the Kaaba. Umrah is a ritual for the Kaaba. Show us how, arina manasikana. It's including everybody now. He's including all of his lineage in it. وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا. And accept our tawbah. Accept our tawbah. It's not enough, philosophically speaking a little bit, just thinking outside of the box and speaking to those who are not in our faith. They say, I love God. There are people who say, I don't follow religion, but I love God. He's awesome. I believe in Him too. What does He want you to do? Well, He tells me in my heart what I should be doing. I've met crazy people like that. When I used to live in New York, one of my coworkers, she used to say, yeah, you know what happened last night? I saw God in my dream. And He told me what I should have for lunch today and stuff. It's like, what's wrong with you? That wasn't God, that was the devil. We're confused. But the idea that I'm going to figure out for myself what Allah wants. No, we have to ask Allah to show us what He wants from us. We can't know that for ourselves. Some narrations tell us that before Islam came, there were people sincerely wanting to worship Allah, and the ignorance had spread so far and wide that at the house of Allah that Ibrahim a.s. built, they did not know how to worship Allah. So the only thing they could figure out of their creative juice was, we'll just take all of our clothes off and dance around the Kaaba naked, and this will be our way to worship Allah. They didn't know. They just didn't know. So when Allah's Messenger comes, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and teaches us these rituals, it is a fulfillment of the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam. وَأَرِنَا مَنَاسِكَنَا وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا. And accept our tawbah. And subhanallah, if you look at the correlation between the Quran and the Sunnah of Allah's Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of the promises of the Messenger for a Hajj that is accepted is what? What is one of the great benefits of the Hajj being accepted, of a Hajj mabrur? Forgiveness. Your tawbah is accepted. Clean slate. And Ibrahim a.s. says, as he's building the Kaaba, show us the rituals and accept our tawbah. Accept it. وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ. Certainly you're the only one who keeps turning back. Tawwab is a mubalagha. This is what I'm ending with today. Tawwab is just a mubalagha. You know what that means? You keep turning back and you keep turning back and you keep turning back. Human beings can be forgiving too. Human beings have the ability to be forgiving. When somebody makes a mistake, let's say at work, your employee makes a mistake, you forgive it the first time, he makes the same mistake again, you forgive it a second time, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, after like 3 times you're like, you're fired. Why am I fired? Because I let you go the first time, then I let you go the second time, I can't keep doing this with you, I'm done with you. He says, no, I'm really sorry, and you say, no, you said that last time too. I'm done, I don't have that kind of time. The teacher can do that, the student fails one exam, he says, okay, one more. He fails another exam. He says, okay, fine, I accept your tawbah this time too. The third time around, he says, you know what? Sorry, this is over. I'm kicking you out. You're done. You're finished. Right? This happens in many relationships. But our relationship with Allah, we mess up. We make tawbah. Even if we make sincere tawbah, is it possible we mess up again? Absolutely. Our track record shows this way. Our resume is pretty bad. Right? We go back to Allah again. He accepts tawbah again. We say, okay, we won't do it again, we promise, then we make the mistake again, we go back to Allah again, and guess what? Does He say no more for you? No, tawwab, He keeps accepting tawbah. But what's beautiful about this ayah is, Ibrahim alayhi salam is asking for tawbah, first and foremost for who? for himself. And second in line for Ismail alayhi salam, and third in line for his future generations. Now for his future generations, I understand tawbah. What we have to wrap our heads around is, what is the tawbah of Ibrahim alayhi salam? What is he making tawbah for? What is Ismail alayhi salam making tawbah for? When we think of tawbah, we think of eating haram, backbiting, lying, cheating, stealing, not giving somebody their right, missing the fard prayers. We think of tawbah for bad things we do. Ibrahim alayhi salam, that's out of the question. You know what he's making tawbah for? The good things he's done. The good things he's done, and he's convinced they may not have been good enough. So he considers that a shortcoming. Can you imagine the difference in standard? Our standard is we make tawbah for bad deeds. He's making tawbah and istighfar for good deeds that could have been better according to him. وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ. SubhanAllah, when we talk about the messengers being at a different level than ourselves, we have to appreciate what that means. You know? What is it, and this came up in Dars the other time too, on Sunday, when the messenger makes istighfar. What is he making istighfar for? Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. There's a difference between when you and I make istighfar and what we make istighfar for, and what Allah's messenger makes istighfar for. When we say that may Allah forgive our mistakes, dhanb, and when the messenger calls his mistake a dhanb, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, our dhanb and his dhanb are worlds apart. Our best deed wouldn't even amount to his worst dhanb. There's no comparison even. There's two different standards we're talking about. So when we just look at translation and don't appreciate these powerful differences, some great aspects of just the regard we're supposed to have, the respect we're supposed to have for prophets, alayhimu salatu wassalam, is lost. I make it a point to emphasize this more because we are in a time where respect is not easily found. People don't have respect for anything nowadays. We don't have respect for time, we don't have respect for ourselves, family members, elders, youth, wives, husbands, parents, imams, fellow Muslims, co-workers. We just don't have respect. You don't even have respect for the guy you're driving next to. You don't have respect. You don't have respect for co-workers, for fellow peers in classes. Respect is missing. And when respect in these small things is missing, it can get worse and worse until you don't even have enough respect as you should have for bigger things, like Allah's book. You know, like deen, like the Quran, like the Messenger himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When you find that people are getting lazy in saying sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's a pretty good sign that respect is going down. We have to keep these things alive. And I tell you, wallahi, nobody will teach your children and my children. Nobody will teach them, not in a Sunday school, not in a khutbah, not in a halaqah, not in a lecture, not in a YouTube video. Nobody will teach your children respect for Allah's messengers like you will. Nobody will teach them that. You have to sit and talk to them about it. You have to remind them over and over again. You have to build in them that love of the Prophets, especially our Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May Allah give us that love and respect of the Prophets, and may Allah teach us to become people of tawbah, like the messengers themselves were. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Hakim, wa nafa'ni wa iyyakum bil ayati wa dhikr al-Hakim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.